Hi, friends. Hi, friends. Hi, friends. This is Rose AJ, the Carnivore Connection. Y'all, look who we have here, the real Dave Matt. And I finally had the courage a couple of weeks ago to ask, hey, will you come over here and talk to me too? I mean, he is like the best of the best on YouTube as far as providing an audience or a platform for people that want to share their carnivore journey. And as I've told him publicly and privately, that he is my mentor. I watch him and good, it's all good in the hood because it's out there in the universe. But Dave, this is all about you, boo. I'm going to mute myself and you just take it away.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. I mean, I guess I'll start with my carnivore journey. I discovered I really found carnivore about 20, 22, 23 years ago, and I found it by way of Atkins. I started doing Atkins when I was a lot younger than I am now, and um, so I started Atkins, and I realized my body was responding so well to this so quickly, and I was I never really got off the Atkins induction stage, and the induction stage is as close to carnivore as you're ever going to get, you know? And I was young and I didn't really, when you're young, you're invincible. You don't really think about what you're doing. You just think about, whether you look healthy or not. And so I was including very little vegetables, even though there was some meant to be included in the induction phase. So basically, I was eating 100% animal based. And I felt great, but I allowed people to talk me out of doing it. The media, and I worked with a dietitian, and he was like, or an ex-dietitian, and he was like, you're going to kill yourself. You need your breads, you need your cereal, you need all this stuff. And so I allowed myself after a few months to be talked out of it. And of course I put on weight, and I continued like that. I kind of bounced back and forward to low carb or keto throughout the next 20 years. But basically, I stayed pretty heavy. And I think at my heaviest, I was probably close to around, I guess it would be about 200 pounds. That was 200, 210 pounds. That was my heaviest. And I've got one, I was young. It was more than 10 years ago, probably about 20 years ago. And I've got one photo of it. And I just look like the Michelin Man. It looks like someone's kind of hooked up a bicycle pump to my belly button or something and pumps in the air. But so this went on for 20 odd years. And over that 20 odd years, I'd also developed a liking for alcohol. And of course, the sugar addiction was there as well. And the alcohol had become a real big problem. And the sugar had always been a problem. And one day, a couple of years ago, I went to see a doctor, and the doctor was telling me that I was pre-diabetic and I had an alcohol problem. Spoiler alert, I knew I had the alcohol problem. But he, because I was pre-diabetic, he focused on the alcohol issue first. And he wanted to put me on a drug called antabuse. And antabuse is a drug that doesn't do anything unless you drink alcohol. And then if you drink alcohol, it makes you violently ill and has the side effect of potentially death. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not big into medications as it is, but ones that have death as a side effect, I'm kind of, yeah. So I said to the doctor, look, give me a few weeks and I'll see if I can do something myself. And he kind of looked at me like, yeah, all right. But he let me go. And I thought, okay, how can I get this under control? And the only way I'd ever known to have self-control in my life was when I was on Atkins low carb keto. And I knew that it just for some reason I had this discipline when I was on it, right? It took a lot of it took a lot of self-discipline to be able to get there. But once I was over that hump, it was just like the control, the self-control, the discipline just came naturally. And so I thought, okay, well, why don't I try and do that? So I did my best to get onto keto. And on top of that, I had to kind of change a few things because obviously, like getting off alcohol is not easy. And so I had to remove the triggers that were there for me to normally to drink the alcohol. Like um, I was teaching at an English school that was pretty kind of soul destroying. Um, and every night I'd be looking at the clock and there'd be like one lesson or two lessons to go. And I'd be looking at the clock and I'd be thinking, I can't, how am I going to face these students? How am I going to do this? And always at the back of my mind, it was like, don't worry, there's only an hour to go and then you'll be able to have that beer. And so I had to kind of get rid of the triggers that would make me feel like having the alcohol. And so some of those triggers were walking past the convenience store that sold the alcohol on the way home, and or you know, sitting close to someone who was drinking beer on the train or something like that. And so I removed those things. I stuck to keto, and I got over the feeling of needing to drink. And so that was good. The problem I had was I was eating some vegetables that were causing some gastrointestinal problems. But I didn't know it was the vegetables at the time. I thought, "Oh, I've, you know, all this fat and whatever I'm suddenly consuming is making me go to the bathroom very quickly." Until I watched a video, and I think it was a Ken Berry video, and he was talking about the kind of vegetables that cause diarrhea. And he listed basically all the vegetables that I was trying to put into my keto breakfast. And I'm like, I wonder if these are the problem then. Maybe it's not the fat. And so I thought, okay, well, let's give this a test. So I took them out and the problems went away. And I've been carnivore ever since. So that's kind of June 2022.
Okay, so Dave, that is like major, major, major. So I have to ask you about the alcohol. Did you ever go back and imbibe? Are you a casual drinker to this day, or has it been completely removed from everything that you do?
No, it's completely removed. So I'm an all or nothing person. I'm a smoker or I'm not a smoker. I'm a drinker or I'm not a drinker. And so sugar addict or not. And so, yeah, I haven't gone near it again. I occasionally will, like, if it's I go out for dinner, then I like the feeling of having something fizzy to drink. And so that could be either like, you know, you get a bottle of sparkling water, or I'll have a non-alcohol beer.
Okay.
And like the non-alcohol beers here, they're probably not good. They're probably full of chemicals, but you know, it's just it gives me that feeling, you know. So
So, what does your family think? This is one of your questions. What does your family think? And do they eat the same way that you do?
they um they are happy for me. That you know, I'm health they can see I'm healthier. They're happy that I've got off the alcohol. It works for me. They're happy about that, but they're not gonna do it. My wife's a nurse, and so this goes against everything she's been trained about, you know. And yeah, and there's been times where my wife's asked me a question about, you know, why is the population kind of getting sicker, or why are there more diabetics in Japan these days, or blah blah blah. And of course I'll answer with, well, it's sugar, it's this, it's that, and she'll just be like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. It's always the same thing from you. So it's not, as long as I'm not kind of rubbing their face in it, they're happy for me. So
Oh, good, good. Oh, when did you start sharing your story and then inviting others into your channel to share their story?
so I didn't start so I've been carnivore since June 2022. Didn't start my channel until October 2022. And the reason I started the channel was because I was kind of angry, because I started to realize how many things were getting better for me now that I'd cut out the carbohydrates. And it was so many things. And I was thinking, this is ridiculous. I've lived, what age would I have been then? 47, going on 48. I would have, I've lived 47 and a half years and had all these issues, and I didn't need to have them. And so I was really angry. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to put some videos out there. And I expected, you know, 10 people maybe to view the videos, most of them probably family and friends out of pity. And it just kind of exploded.
I love it. I love it. It's just genius. And I'm so thankful for you. Honestly, I really am thankful for you. And I don't know if you remember, but I said that I wake up, as a part of my morning routine, going to the bathroom, brushing my teeth, getting ready for the day. You're part of my morning routine and whatnot. And I think you're a part of a lot of people's routines from some of the comments that I've been reading, that they start their morning with you either over breakfast or as a part of their meditation or whatever. But we get the day
Wow.
started. People are writing into you and sharing their stories. And I don't
Mm.
know if this is a fair question or not, because maybe the way you describe it, it might pinpoint the person. But what is like the weirdest carnivore story journey that you've ever heard? Whether it was really great or really like, only you've
Um,
experienced that.
to be honest, the most surprising stories, there's a few that kind of spring to mind. The first is the fact that so many people get rid of MS problems on carnivore. So for me, I mean, I was never really, I never really understood MS as I was growing up, because I'd never come into contact with anyone with MS before. But, you know, hearing so many people that have MS, and sorry, just to continue that thought. I hadn't really understood what it was, and I thought, well, it's just something you get and you have it, and there's no getting rid of it. And so, but then to talk to, I think it's 7 or 8 people I've spoken to now who have just got rid of the majority of their MS symptoms by going carnivore. And so that's been a real surprise. Um, the other thing is people getting their eyesight back.
Mm,
Um, yeah, yeah, I mean, every story is so unique,
yes.
but yeah.
And speaking of eyesight, my eyesight used to be minus 4.25 in both eyes for years on end. Years on end. Now it's minus 4.25 in one eye, and the other eye is minus 1.75. So my eyesight is getting better too. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, I wear contacts, but yeah. And so, Dave, do you think you're going to have this way of life forever and a day, forever, ever, ever and a day?
Yeah, I can't. There's so many reasons not to go back. The first one is just you feel so much better, you know. Um, there's so many things that improve for me that I would be giving up if I went back. You know, I don't have arthritis anymore. I don't have skin issues anymore. Don't have eczema. Um, you know, I can think more clearly about things. All these things I know would just go away if I went back. And you know, I've added some vegetables back just to try things out occasionally, and the pain comes back almost instantly in my knee. So, like, I know that I would be giving that up. So that's the main thing. Um, but also, you know, I don't want to give up this easier way of living. You know, I don't have to think about food all the time. You know, before it was, you know, okay, well, I'll make my breakfast and that might have been some toast and some eggs or something like that. And then it would be, okay, so what am I going to have at 10 o'clock for a snack? And then after the snack is, what am I having for lunch? And then after lunch is, what's the afternoon snack? And then what's for dinner? And what am I having before I go to bed while I'm watching a movie or whatever? And it's like, it just never ends. And so I don't want to go back to that for a few reasons. Like it's just exhausting. Um, and not having to do that anymore, it just makes you so much more productive. And you can actually focus on things that are important rather than I need my next fix, you know? So I think those are the main things.
I lived my whole life like that, Dave. I'm so serious. I can
Mm.
totally identify with structuring your eating, thinking about what you're going to eat next before you've even finished what you've had, or walking past a pastry shop and wanting everything in there. Darn the budget. Forget the budget. I have money for all these foods, right? So, Dave, what do you eat nowadays? What do you eat? What's your best meal that you like to cook on repeat?
I every single day, it's about a pound of ground beef, about 6 to 8 eggs, and lots of salt. And that's it. And then I'll just drink sparkling water throughout the day and no coffee anymore. So my hot beverage now is boiled water with lots of salt, pink salt in there.
What made you give up the coffee? Oh my gosh. I'm still a work in progress on that. I don't think I'll ever give it up. But what made you give up the coffee?
Couple of things. First, I wanted to improve my sleep. And second, I knew that like I talk to a lot of people that have gone carnivore and they say, I can't give up my coffee. But there's still people that are only having one, maybe two cups of coffee a day. I could go through a bag of coffee in one day. That's and like it's not like I'm having a trillion cups of coffee a day. It's like I was having the coffee so strong each time that, you know, in 6 or 7 cups, I could go through the bag of coffee. And I knew I just knew this cannot be healthy for me. And so, yeah, those things made me wanna get rid of it.
What got you to that level of being a coffee connoisseur, though? That much coffee. I mean, I'm a heavy coffee drinker too. I believe it, but that's a lot.
I part of it is I've been drinking coffee since I was little. Like, since I was in elementary school, I've been drinking coffee. Um, so that's part of it. The second part is and so because I've been drinking it so long, like, it's like any drug, you've gotta have a little bit stronger to get the hit, right? Um, but I think also in some ways when I originally went, okay, I'm giving up alcohol and giving up sugar, that's it. I think coffee really became a replacement for anything when any moment where I thought, okay, I've gotta have something. You know, it was like, okay, well, I've eaten, I'm not hungry, but I need to have something in my hand. And I'm not smoking anymore. That stopped years ago. Um, and I wanted to stop the drinking, so I think coffee became the the overindulgence.
The replacement, the filler.
Mm.
So, what process did you use to wean yourself off of coffee? Because that's hardcore.
Um, uh, s- uh, Multiple attempts is really what weaned me off coffee. Um, Multiple attempts at trying to give it up and giving it up for slightly longer periods each time. And um, one of the problems with um, addiction generally, I think, is when you give something up, you feel quite good that you've given it up, but when you're not drinking coffee or you're not smoking cigarettes or you've stopped drinking alcohol, whatever it is, you've always got this little voice in the back of your head that's kind of going, "Come on, you know you want to have one. You come on, just have one." Right? And it's like it's ever present. And every time I've given up coffee, that's always been there, you know? And I think what it was is I just had enough attempts and stayed off it during those attempts for long enough that this final time that I gave it up, that kind of little voice at the back of my head just disappeared.
Well, I'm so happy and so proud of you for doing that.
Yeah, it just stopped. I can't taper down anything.
Okay. Oh, you didn't have headaches or
Very
crankiness?
really bad headaches on day 1, the end of day 1 and day 2, really bad headaches.
Okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're not going back, and how long have you been without coffee now?
It's coming up on 2.5 weeks now.
Good for you. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna use you as my guiding light on that too to maybe give it another attempt, but I'll have to really consider that. Dave, where do you see yourself 6 months from now, either in your work life, personal life, or your creative life, or even traveling? Where do you see yourself at 6 months from now, your future self?
It's a good question. Look, I really enjoy travel, so of course I'd like to travel a lot more, but maybe 6 months is, money-wise with the yen in the state it's in, that, 6 months might be a too short window to start traveling a lot. But over the next 6 months, I think really what I'd like to do is start doing a bit more strength training. So when I first started Carnivore, I was really into just doing stuff at home, just like push-ups and crunches and all that kind of stuff at home. And the fact that you're eating red meat, it just like the muscle comes on really quickly. But, life gets in the way. And so over the last year, I've kind of let that go to the wayside. And it hasn't negatively impacted my body, except that, there's much less muscle there than there was before. But, it's not like I put on weight or anything. But yeah, I'd like to get more back into that more.
So, would you go to a gym or would you have weights at home or follow someone on YouTube or get a trainer? How would you go about that?
I'd probably just do something at home because
Okay.
I'm kind of, if I go to a gym, I feel like I've got to set that time aside and get to the gym and all that kind of thing. I'm kind of more effective if I've just got the weights sitting next to my desk and I'm just like, okay, I'll do it now. And it could be, in between interviews or something like that. And it just gets it done.
Okay. All right. So, Dave, is there anything that you would leave with this audience? Maybe for somebody that's just starting out or somebody that keeps starting and stopping? Any words of wisdom that you could lend them?
Yeah, I would say to anyone that's getting started, or if you've fallen off the wagon and you're getting started again, is just focus a day at a time doing this. Don't think into the future because when you excuse me, when you're giving something up or you're trying to change your lifestyle, when you look into the future, it makes it really hard to focus on that goal of giving something up, right? In this case, it would be giving up carbohydrates, right? But you know, if you're giving up smoking, giving up drinking, giving up carbs, and you think, okay, so I'm going to do it today, and then you start to think of, can I do this for another month? Can I do this for another year? And then you start to doubt yourself, and you're just like, oh, I don't know. And there's something good on TV, and I'd really like to have an ice cream while I'm watching this, or whatever it is, right? And it's so easy to fall off the wagon. So I would say the best thing to do is just focus on a day at a time. Just focus on getting through day one without having any carbohydrate in anything you eat, and just get to bed by day one without doing anything. Sorry, without eating anything carbohydrate wise, and a couple of magical things are going to happen. You're going to wake up on day two. You're going to feel good about yourself because first thing you're going to think is, oh, I didn't have carbohydrates yesterday. How awesome am I? And then the second thing you're going to think is, I feel better, right?
Mhm.
And just those two things happening, it makes your resolve that little bit stronger, not much, but just that little bit. And so now you just need to focus on getting through day two. And then when you wake up on day three, it's like, again, you have those two feelings like, I did it again. And I'm feeling better again. I've slept better. And, you know, your resolve's just getting stronger and stronger. And I would say, just for the first couple of weeks, just focus on a day at a time. And in my experience, it makes it much easier. And I've had a lot of addictions. It's
Yes.
easier to get through to the other side.
Well, thank you for those words of wisdom right there. And I can really back that up because it is one day at a time. If you try to take on the whole elephant, you'll stumble, fumble, and fall and might not get back up. So the one day at a time wisdom, awesome. Okay, one more question before we leave.
Mm.
Who did you use or who did you enjoy following as far as a doctor on YouTube or an influencer or maybe even a book that really kind of helped you on your journey?
I think when I started, I was watching, you know, Kim Berry, Stan Ekberg. Um, I think the person that made it easiest for me to get started was Stan Ekberg because he's good at explaining things. But once I did take the plunge and get started, I think Sean Baker was probably the most helpful because his podcast had interviews with everyone, you know, all these different types of people. And so it was good to just chuck his podcast on, listen to the interviews, and, you know, get the motivation that way.
And did you have a buddy a buddy like a partner or somebody that you went into this space with as far as accountability or anything like that? Or you did it pretty much solo and watched videos for support?
Yeah. It was just me. Yeah. Yeah. No one, no one was interested. Everyone was like, this is weird.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Dave. Thank you so much for being here today. My heart's jumping out of the skin and whatnot. And I don't know what else to say except, of course, most people already know to follow you on Zero Carb because you're the OG in this space as far as sharing other people's stories and keeping it going. And that's another thing. Do you think you'll do this indefinitely, sharing people's stories?
I've gotten to a bit of a pattern, so it certainly
Uh-huh.
feels like it is at this stage,
Okay.
but yeah,
Okay.
only time will
Okay.
tell. Thank you so much for having me on, Rose. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.